Weekly Wheaties 2347, Smartwatches, Tesla, AI, Library Map. Where does the smartwatch end? The world of watches has been growing in the last few years, obviously in the smartwatch world, but also for dumb watches. AI is even getting involved by helping create a Casio watch going up for auction, hoping to bring in over $70,000. I talk a lot about YouTubers, but two popular channels you can watch talk about nothing but collectible watches. Check out Ed Sheeran's collection on Talking Watches with John Mayer. Kevin O'Leary is known to be a watch collector and frequently meets up with Teddy Baldassari to talk watches too. So, do you wear a watch? Have you always worn a watch? Now, do you wear a smartwatch? Most of my life, I was the person who never wore a watch, except for one very specific reason: running. And even then, if I ran with others who wore a watch, I may have even opted to not wear mine. I was, however, the person who ran with an arm-mounted version of the Walkman to listen to the radio or MP3 files. Yes, the radio. I know. I went through a few versions of MP3 players as well, many before the iPod was released too. The radio was nice because you didn't know what to expect compared to the limited numbers of songs you could keep on an MP3 player back then. Fast forward a few years, Apple released their watch. However, I was fully vested in the Microsoft ecosystem at this time, so it wasn't for me. I had the Microsoft Band already, and then the Band 2. My hopes were high for the Band 3, but Microsoft decided to cancel the product and even refunded my purchase for the Band 2 when I sent it in for an insurance replacement. I tore the band. It was a bit upsetting and I may still be in mourning. Needless to say, I was sold into the smartwatch world and still had a Microsoft phone. While there were Android watches I probably could have gone with, I decided to try out the Apple Watch. Then, Microsoft canceled their phone lineup and I switched to Apple's iPhone to match. You can read more about that process here. I'm here now and too far in to switch camps now. I also recently wrote about this in depth if you're curious about why I'm planning to stay. In the past decade or so, smartphones have become this thing where it seems like only 1% of the phone is actually used as a phone. Also, I know there are some of you out there that still use your phone for mostly a phone. We can still be friends, and I promise not to call you a boomer. However, I think in the next decade or so, smartwatches will go that route too. Just look around you right now. How many clocks do you have access to? Do you really need the time on your wrist, especially if your phone alerts you every time you need to do something or go somewhere? Even so, you probably have your phone in your hand most of the time too, right? Granted, smartwatches will still be mostly important for the time, but manufacturers are packing more and more features on your wrist. On the extreme ends, Huawei's WatchBuds provides Bluetooth headphones inside their watch. Lenovo is working on a bendy phone that wraps around your wrist, essentially eliminating your watch. Or phone? The verdict is still out on that one. The Apple Watch receives new updates every year, Sherlocking their own phone features sometimes. Your watch can now have cellular service and can do just about everything your phone can, without your phone being close by. You can even do things you can't with a phone. Well, easily anyway. I'm thinking running, biking, swimming, snowboarding, or anything where you can't keep something on your person easily, or it's very difficult to reach in your pocket and interact with it. Alternatively, your phone can do one very big thing a watch can't, at least yet, and that's taking amazing photos and videos. While there's an argument they can replace more powerful full-frame cameras, any professional photographer wouldn't agree. It's just more difficult to get the precision and workability of a camera when that is its only job. That goes for anything. If something can do everything well, it probably can't do one thing great in comparison to something created to do that one thing. That said, I am the person who's all for upgrading a phone every few years for nothing more than the cameras, as I don't own a full-frame camera anymore. I've talked about them in the past as a pick, but Humane's AI pin has been making quite the scene, with their group of former Apple employees. It seems as much as phones are getting bigger, they are also getting smaller, thereby allowing the area between phones and watches to blend together, making it difficult to spot the differences. On the larger end of phones, they blend with tablets so much, a smaller tablet can be confused for a larger phone. Even Samsung's flip and fold devices can be confusing. Are they a phone or a tablet, or a phone in one orientation and a tablet in another? If you put an iPad mini up next to the iPhone 15 Plus and ask someone who's not familiar with the Apple line of products to describe what's different, I'd bet the replacement cost of both they couldn't tell you. And they probably wouldn't believe you if you told them the only difference would be the size, the camera, and one of them can make phone calls via a SIM card. That's essentially it. That also may be a secret Apple doesn't want you to know, so pretend I didn't tell you that. Where does this leave us with a watch? Could someone get by without a phone in lieu of a watch and a tablet? Absolutely. The question is more about convenience, portability, battery life, and features a user needs at the time they need it. The problem is that the line moves one way or the other for each person's wants and needs. So, if you don't have one, have you considered a smartwatch? In case you missed it, Tesla updates. While Tesla is breaking ground on their 1950s-style drive-in diner near Hollywood, the Cybertruck has now been released. Many popular YouTubers have made multiple videos from a full review to comparing it to others in the same space. Check out this full review by Jason Camisa. While it appears many either love or hate the design, everyone is showing similar performance specs during testing. For something that is noted as having more utility than a truck and faster than a sports car. So far, that is ringing true. The 6,800-pound monstrosity has multiple verifications of a sub-11 second quarter mile, while having the ground clearance and turning radius to rock climb with the best of them. Not to mention the tons of technology features and accessories already available while it beat an F-350 in a pulling test. The range is always an issue with pulling over long distances, but this is still pretty amazing to see how the EVs are stacking up against ICE vehicles. Among the news, Tesla also open-sourced all the engineering of the original Roadster, just in case you had the next-gen version on order and were tired of waiting. In case you missed it, AI updates. Last week I gave as much of an update available on Sam Altman's week going from being fired to rehired at OpenAI as seemed public. After another week we have a bit more news, but nothing completely earth-shattering. That's what ChatGPT did, right? First, it was reported some staff researchers wrote a letter to the board. This letter stated a concern about AI's possible threat to humanity. It's also possible this letter sparked the firing of Altman, as there were also concerns of his wanting to more commercialize ChatGPT and other tools. We don't have any direct source and can't quite verify this either. Sam Altman was interviewed about this process by The Verge and didn't say anything about the reasoning behind the firing. So, there are still unanswered questions. Their competitor, Google Bard, released a YouTube extension that allows all YouTube videos to be searched easier than other tools available appear to do. In a podcast with Trevor Noah, Bill Gates talked about the future of AI and mentioned AI could allow the typical work week to lower to 3 days a week. This may be a bit premature, as we've yet to see what AI can do when replacing a UK school's principal. Pick of the week, the Library Map. The Library Map is an interactive website that lets you discover new books. If you enjoy reading but may have trouble finding something to read next, simply search for one of your favorites and see what book pops up relatively close. There are over 100,000 books sorted based on relevance and similarity, with their color representing the genre. The size of the bubble dictates the number of reviews, so you may soon notice not all books written are included. For example, I know one of your favorite books isn't listed due to low reviews, but that doesn't mean it's not a great book. I'm also very biased. Weekly Wheaties is a reader-supported publication. To receive new posts and support my work, consider becoming a free or paid subscriber. See links for the above items at weeklywheaties.com.